It's the morning of November 7th, 1944. 12 P-38 Lightnings slice through the Yugoslavian sky, sunlight glinting off their twin booms. Colonel Clarence Theodore Edwinson, leading the formation, spots a telltale cloud of steam below. A German train, not their primary target, but too tempting to ignore. "Let's go get it, boys!" He barks over the radio, rolling his Lightning into a dive. His squadron follows, rapidly gaining on the locomotive. They line it up, triggers, squeezed, and a hail of 50 caliber rounds rips into the steam engine. Steam erupts from countless holes as the Lightnings pull up, only to be met by angry black puffs of German flak. Shrapnel pings off the thin metal skins of their planes. "Everyone, get low!" Edwinson shouts, but it's too late. A P-38 is struck dead on, bursting into flames. The pilot's desperate cry fills the radio. "I'm hit! I'm going down!" Edwinson levels out, scanning the trees below, but instead of his man, he sees a fiery explosion as the stricken Lightning slams into a hillside. "Does anyone see a chute?" The silence is deafening. "Negative, sir." Fury twists Edwinson's gut. "Copy." The remaining P-38 seconds roar over the Serbian mountains. Suddenly, the ground drops away, revealing a valley with an airfield, exactly as described in their mission briefing. Seconds later, Edwinson spots a long line of trucks and tanks heading north on the road to Belgrade. There's no doubt in his mind, this is their chance for revenge. There are those sons of bitches. "Blue Flight, get that German convoy, red and yellow, to the airfield." "Yes, sir." Unknown to the Americans, the Red Army and Yugoslav partisans are celebrating the anniversary of the October Revolution. Soldiers sing, Soviet flags wave from the convoy, until the distant rumble of engines interrupts their festivities. They look up, smiling at the sight of what they believe are Allied planes. The celebrations resume. Few are alarmed as the aircraft break formation and turn towards them. No, they are about to strafe us." The Lightnings bear down, their roar growing louder. A few Soviet soldiers, recognizing the danger, frantically wave their flags higher, hoping the Americans will see. But there's no time. The pilots, oblivious, pull their triggers. Bullets tear through men and vehicles. The column descends into a frantic panic under a storm of lead. Then, American bombs rain down. Explosions rip through the convoy, inflicting heavy casualties. At the nearby airfield, the distant blasts are heard. Lookouts snap to attention, spotting a swarm of aircraft heading straight for them. "Man the guns!" The alert sounds, and Soviet soldiers rush to their anti-aircraft positions, which erupt with a furious roar, tracers arcing into the sky. Edwinson leads his men down, believing they are attacking a Luftwaffe airfield teeming with Bf 109 seconds. Anti-aircraft fire sweeps through their formation, but they are undeterred. 20mm shells and 50 caliber bullets pour from the Lightnings, smashing into the earth, ripping across rows of parked aircraft, the crackle of enemy fire hitting their own birds, a constant reminder of the danger. "Pull up." The Lightnings climb, but one fails to follow. Second, Lieutenant Eldon Coulson yanks on the yoke, but his plane is too damaged by the Soviet guns. He flies perilously low, attracting the concentrated fire of the entire airfield's defenses. "She's not coming up!" More impacts rip apart the Lightning's wings and elevators. Control slips from his grasp, and the P-38 crashes a kilometer from the airfield, exploding. Edwinson sees the fireball, his anger rekindling. They will make the Germans pay. Build some altitude and go in again. Below, anti-aircraft fire continues skyward at what they believe are German twin-boom FW 189 seconds. Red Army pilots rush to their remaining yaks through fire and smoke. "Combat alert! All pilots scramble!" The first two Yak 9 seconds to start are piloted by Lieutenant Krivanogic and his wingman, Junior Lieutenant Shipulya. As they taxi, Krivanogic looks up and sees the enemy fighters turning for another attack. "Shipulya, faster!" They line up on the runway, smashing the throttle to full. The Yak 9 seconds roar down the runway and lift off, the terrifying sight of the incoming enemies looming overhead. The two Soviets skim the treetops, racing away from the P-38 seconds sights. Behind them, The rest of the Soviet pilots are not so lucky. They take off in a large group, easy targets for a squadron that has already lost 2 men. Get those planes before they gain altitude. His men don't question. They dive at maximum speed, peppered by anti-air fire from the ground. Crosshairs on target, they pull the triggers. Bullets and shells tear through the Soviet planes. One Yak is immediately destroyed. Several others damaged. They break into evasive maneuvers as lightnings soar overhead. All except one. A Soviet pilot sees his attacker pulling out of the dive and seizes the opportunity. In a split second, he pulls his Yak upward and fires. The P-38 flies straight through his burst, ripped to shreds, bursting into flames and spinning violently out of control. The pilot, Second Lieutenant Philip Brewer, is trapped, his plane plummeting to earth, crashing northeast of the Soviet airfield. The P-38 seconds gain altitude, escaping the grasp of the anti-air gunners. Edwinson looks down at one enemy and 2 friendly wrecks burning. This fight is far tougher than he expected. A lot of fighters incoming. Make a defensive circle. We're shooting our way out. Meanwhile, Krivonogik and Shapulia race low over the trees, accelerating to over 400 kilometers per hour. The attack on their squadron has left them isolated, but watching the enemy fighters open fire on the helpless column, they know they have no choice. The pair of Yak-9 seconds pull up into a steep vertical climb. For the first time in history, fighters of the United States and Soviet Union are about to face off in all-out air-to-air combat. Shapulia, attack! I'll cover you. Roger that. Shapulia races in pursuit, sweeping in at high speed, opening fire with his single 20mm cannon and 50 caliber machine gun. His bursts land on one of the P-38's twin fuselages. But it doesn't take it down. Shapulia soars by at blistering speeds and turns away to prepare for another run. But the American pilot requests backup, and 2 circling P-38 seconds come to his rescue. Krivonogik spots the enemies diving upon his wingman and shouts over the radio, "Shapulia, maneuver, brake right!" It's just in the nick of time. Shapulia pulls hard at the last second, escaping the P-38's lethal burst. He twists and dodges the enemy aircraft's guns, but he's on the back foot. "I can't get rid of him! Hang on, I'm coming!" Krivonogik flies into the scene as fast as he can, his heart thumping with every burst of tracers launched towards his wingman. He's coming in fast. His crosshairs line up with one of the 2 lightnings, and he pulls the trigger. His gunshots streak across the sky, narrowly missing the enemy aircraft. The American pilot immediately abandons the attack, but Krivonogik ignores him. He moves on to the next P-38 hounding. Shapulia takes aim and opens fire. His rounds are perfectly placed, hitting the Lightning's twin booms, bursting the aircraft into flame. It flies on, out of control. The American pilot bails, and his burning plane crashes 8 kilometers north of the Soviet airfield. "Thank you, Commander." "You're welcome. Prepare to fight." Both brace for an onslaught. They're horribly outnumbered. But then, the rest of the Soviet squadron bursts onto the scene, opening fire and scattering their enemies. Krivonogik is relieved. Victory is now within reach. The 2 pilots rush into the fight again, but in the chaos of battle, they get split up. Krivonogik sets his sights on an enemy and chases him through the melee, spiraling upwards. The P-38 does the same. But the P-38 isn't optimized for low-altitude flying, and Krivonogik quickly catches up. He has the American in his sights. On the ground, a Soviet anti-air crew fires at every enemy target they see. Whether it was bad aim or an over-enthusiastic gun crew, no one will ever know. But they send a volley directly at Krivonogik's Yak. He gets no warning. His Yak is struck directly and disintegrates. Shapulia tries to raise his friend on the radio and sees the burning wreck plummeting to the ground. His friend is gone. He shakes the loss from his mind and spots an American target beneath him. He's outnumbered and now without his friend, but he still dives back into the fight. P-38 seconds swarm around him. One performs a steep climb, stalls, and then opens fire. Shapulia has no chance. He flies straight through its fire and is shot down. The burning wreck of his plane crashes 500 meters north of the airfield he was defending. Soviet losses mount. Another Yak is shot down. Soviet forces desperately contact every nearby base, hoping for reinforcement. Rushing to the scene is a fresh group of Yak-3 fighters, led by Captain Alexander Koldunov. He's responding to the airfield commander's desperate plea for help, but Koldunov is unsure what he'll find. He's been told he's fighting German Tu-189 seconds, but he knows the 189 is a reconnaissance aircraft, not used for attacks like this. Something is very wrong. Approaching the battle, he sees what is before him is not an FW-189. That unmistakable shape is an American P-38. He immediately abandons his attack and roars alongside the Americans, wagging his wings, hoping the Allied pilots see the red stars. "We are allies," but instead, the lightning slows, gets behind, and turns to fire. Damn it! Koldunov breaks into evasive maneuvers and escapes the furious volley. "Come on! What are you doing?" He once again flies straight through the maelstrom, trying to capture the attention of the American pilots. But it doesn't work until he flies right alongside Edwinson. Edwinson sees the Soviet plane, and his eyes go wide, a cold sense of dread traveling down his spine. He looks around at the other aircraft zipping by. Every single one of the so-called enemies sports the red Soviet stars. Holy shit! Cease fire! Cease fire! They are Soviets! Everyone back to base! Now! Repeat! Everyone back to base! Now! All of the P-38 seconds turn west and flee, but they are chased by the Yaks. All pilots, let them go. They are allies. One by one, each Soviet pilot turns back to their base, and the terrible accident comes to an abrupt end. The incident was taken by some in Soviet high command to have been a deliberate act, and for a brief moment, the fallout threatened to spiral out of control. But the U.S. Planks Van Stand admitted the mistake in an explanatory letter to the Soviets that set out the chain of events as to why the Americans thought they were fighting the Germans. The Soviet account, although likely embellished, was released over the years. American information on the incident is very scarce, and many believe that the full account of the incident has been kept secret and remains classified until 100 years after the event.